The Consulting Success podcast is powered by the Clarity Coaching Program. If you'd like to work directly with the Consulting Success team and receive personal coaching and support to optimize and grow your consulting business, marketing, and revenue, visit consultingsuccess.com to find out more and apply.
Welcome to the Consulting Success Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Zapersky. In this podcast, we'll dive deep into the world of elite consultants, where you'll learn the strategies, tactics, and mindset to grow a highly profitable and successful consulting business.
Hey everyone, it's Michael Zapersky, and today I'm here with Domenic Rinaldi. Domenic, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
So Domenic, you are the managing director of Sun Acquisitions. You have a background working as an executive in sales, hospitality, and telecom. Let's start off and have you share with us, how do you actually get into the business of advising companies on acquisitions?
Yeah, so about 16 years ago, almost 17 years ago now, I found myself in transition and I was, trying to figure out the next step. After having worked for venture capital-backed companies, private equity companies, publicly traded companies, I decided that I really wanted to go own my own thing. And this was my opportunity. It was never going to be a better time than right now to go out and look at that. And so I went out in the marketplace and started to search for businesses that, might appeal to me, given my background and my skill set. And in the process of searching, I was pretty disillusioned. I just wasn't finding what I wanted. And I knew I didn't want to start something from scratch. I didn't want to take the bet that I was going to start with no clients, no service, nothing. And I said, so I knew I wanted something that was already built where I could see historical performance. And I just wasn't finding what I wanted. And in the process of doing that, I had gotten introduced to a couple of people, and the opportunity to potentially buy a mergers and acquisitions firm came up. And long story short, I did about 6 months of research. It seemed like a great time to enter this business. An opportunity presented itself, and I bought an existing firm that was doing, small market M&A. And it was only a couple of advisors at the time. And here I am, 15, 16 years later, we've got 15 people. We're the largest firm in Chicago that does what we do. We service clients nationally, but in the Chicago market, we're the largest company of our size. And I was able to build what I was hoping I could.
So before we dive deeper into that, you mentioned a moment ago that you felt that when you were going through that transition, that at that time, it was most likely the best time for you. Like there would never be a better time. Why was that? What were the factors going on that made you feel that it was that time was the time for you to act?
Yeah. And let me put a qualifier on that. That time was the best time for the business that I bought. So looking at the macroeconomic trends for this M&A business, and it was a couple of things. One, you had baby boomers who were about to start reaching retirement age, who are going to start retiring in the U.S. in big numbers. And baby boomers own 9 million of the 15 million small businesses. And so they were going to pass those businesses on. And as I came to learn, I didn't quite know at the time, but as I came to learn, many of them didn't have another generation to pass the business on to. So a third-party sale was really the way for them to monetize that investment. At the time, now I'm going back to 2004, 2005, capital markets were wide open, so tons of money. Interest rates were relatively low, not as low as they are today, but they were relatively low. And outsourcing was a thing that was really picking up steam. And so all of those things combined got me to the point where I thought making an investment in this type of firm at that time made a lot of sense. The economics, I just thought, and the trends were in my favor.
So you actually acquired your first business, right? Which is for a lot of people, it's not common. I'd love for you to kind of take us a little deeper into why. Why not start something yourself? Why not, kind of create your own child as opposed to quote unquote, kind of, finding one that's already out there and has developed to a point. This is a bit of a, it's not really a hypothetical question, but, I see your point of view, but I think for those who might be contemplating, or maybe for those who have never even considered the concept of purchasing another business, what really attracted you to that?
Yeah. So there were a number of things. One, I had seen a bunch of friends over the years. And by the way, I wasn't looking for a side hustle, right? I was looking for, a real substantial business, right? That had infrastructure and foundation and all those sorts of things. So if I was looking for side hustle, I might have arrived at a different solution.
Why weren't you looking for that in terms of you starting off just to maybe an advisor in some area? Like, you wanted infrastructure. You really wanted a more substantial, right? Business that had team and resources, systems. Why for you was that important?
Yes. It was important for me because I wanted a platform from which I could grow something substantially. And I wanted to see proof of concept. I wanted to know and be able in my diligence to look at the things that were working in that business and why they were working and how my talents might be able to take that business to the next level versus working from a blank sheet of paper with pro formas and just, hoping that maybe I could execute properly and all the stars were going to align. And I also had the benefit of having several friends who had tried to start businesses and failed. They had put a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort and never really got them off the ground. They were able to get some traction, but not traction to the point where it was a sustainable business. And the other thing was I had worked for a venture capital backed company that had gotten started from scratch where we raised over $100 million in venture capital money. And we got that company to the point where we had filed to go public and 2 weeks before the market crash of April 2000. And so I had seen all this money invested, all this hard work. It wasn't profitable back in the days when you didn't have to be profitable when you were starting a internet company, only to have the markets dictate that we could never get out an IPO. And that business, while the technology was good and it wound up, the technology survived the closing down of that business. There was a lot of money and a lot of effort and a lot of livelihoods that disappeared almost overnight because we couldn't get out into the market and raise the money we needed to raise. And so for me, I wanted to know that there was a platform and a foundation I could take to the next level. And I wanted ongoing cash flows. I have a train to pull. I had a young family at the time. And so it was important for me to know that my tribe was going to be able to pull that train down the track while I was figuring it out and not self-funding my lifestyle every month.
Right. So let's talk about for the consultant and firm owner who's listening to this right now, who may or may not have a vision right now to sell their business. What should they be thinking about? What are some ways? Because I know this is a big part of the work that you do with your clients when it comes to increasing the value of a company. So for those listening right now, what are some of the go-to opportunities and areas that you will look at or often recommend to your clients as a way to increase the value of their company and operations?
Yeah. So the first thing I recommend is understand what your current value of your business is, right? So in whatever means that you can do that, hire a third party, go to somebody who knows how to do this, but get a line in the sand and understand what the value of your business is today, what the key value drivers of your business are. What are the things that increase or decrease value in the business? And there are some basic value drivers that cut across all sorts of businesses. And then there might be some specific ones to your business that you'll need to understand. So I can speak to the generic ones.
Yeah, give us some examples. That would be great to make it more tangible for everyone.
Yeah. So, some examples are, one, how involved are you in the business? So do you have a self-managing business? Or are you so involved in the business and our decisions and processes are reliant on you and your involvement? And this is a spectrum, right, of value. So the less you are involved in the day-to-day operations of the business, the more valuable your business is. And the reason for that is when you do decide to go to market and sell it, if a new buyer comes in, there's less risk for them when they take over that business. You're not controlling any really day-to-day pieces of that business. And so they've got a tremendous amount of comfort that when they take over, operations are going to continue with or without you. If my litmus test on that is you as an owner can go away for 2, 3, 4 weeks and the business still operates, you have a self-managing business. You've increased the value. Recurring revenues. to the extent that you can build a recurring revenue stream into your business, the value of your business is going to go up dramatically. A lot of people think they can't do that, that there's, they're going to have challenges. I would encourage you to pull together some people that you really trusted advisors or a consultant like yourself, and brainstorm ways that you can incorporate recurring revenues into your business model. Companies like HVAC companies, heating and ventilation companies, they've been able to do it through service contracts.
Right.
Who would have ever thought they could build a recurring revenue stream, right? An HVAC business. But lo and behold, they came up with service contracts. It's repeatable revenue. And, now you just grow it larger and larger every year. Vendor concentrations and client concentrations are another good example. If you have one client that represents 20% or more of your revenues, there's some significant risk there. And so to the extent you do have clients that represent that much of your revenue, you want to work hard to mitigate that and bring that down. And to me, the gold standard is no one client, it represents more than 5% of your revenues. And what that means is, if you lose a client, it's not going to be a house of cards. It's not going to bring your business down. And so working hard to have a lot of clients and no one client representing more than, 5 to 10% is a great starting point. Vendor concentrations run across the same thing. The more reliant you are on one vendor, the more risk there is in the business. And when it does come time to sell the business, buyers are going to look at all of these things.
And what are we talking about, Domenic, in terms of the multiple? So let's just take a very simple number, $1 million as kind of top line revenue for a professional services firm. If that company is, let's say, quite heavily owner reliant, meaning that the owner is still a key part of sales, marketing, maybe even delivery, and then compare and contrast that to a company that is doing $1 million, again, top line, just to make it simple. They have recurring revenue in their business. They have less concentration, so a more diversified kind of portfolio of clients, not relying too heavily on any given client. And the business owner themselves is involved, but not so heavily. They're able to step out for a couple of weeks at a time. What are the different kinds of multiples that somebody might expect in the world of kind of a consulting business, professional services, for those two different situations? And I know it's hard because there's lots of cases, but just a range so people have an idea.
While we work with a lot of seasoned and experienced consultants here at Consulting Success, I'm often contacted by new early stage consultants. Invariably, the question I'm asked is, what are the steps I should take to become a successful consultant and grow my consulting business to my first 6 figures per year? Well, I'm excited to announce that we've opened the doors for our Momentum program. This is our most popular program for early stage consultants, and it has helped almost 1,000 consultants to start, run, and grow successful consulting businesses. It gives you the step-by-step plan to help you with your messaging, your fees, and pricing strategies, how to win more proposals, how to go to market more effectively, developing a marketing system to generate leads consistently, and so much more. And right now, until September the 19th, you can sign up for Momentum and get 50% off the regular price by going to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO. Only 100 spots are available to join Momentum and get 50% off. This deal is only available until September the 19th or until all 100 spots are gone. We won't be opening up new spots in this program for several months, so don't wait. Go to consultingsuccess.com/audio. That's consultingsuccess.com/audio, AUDIO.
Yeah. And like you said, it's really almost impossible to answer the question because there's so much more you have to know, but let's throw something at it, right? If you've got a business where it's not self-managed, you could get something as low as a 1 to a 3 multiple, whereas you have a self-managed business, it's not reliant on you, there's recurring revenue, that multiple could be a 3 to a 5.
Right.
And now what's the multiple against? The multiple is against what we call adjusted EBITDA, which is EBITDA when you add back owner benefits, discretionary expenses, things that the owner is getting that won't be expenses in the business if they were to sell it. So we call that adjusted EBITDA. So you're multiplying against that. But that's a dramatic difference, right? You talk about a 1 to 3 versus a 3 to a 5. could meaningful difference on a purchase price and a sale.
Hey, it's Michael here, and we'll be right back to the podcast. But first, are you ready to grow, scale, and take your consulting business and marketing to the next level? If so, our Clarity Coaching program may be a great fit for you. You'll work with our experienced team to set up a strategic plan for your business and coach you step by step in areas like how to consistently attract more leads, develop a magnetic message that resonates with your ideal clients, strategically package and position your services, earn higher fees, win more proposals, and scale your business. To find out more about Clarity Coaching and apply, go to consultingsuccess.com and click on coaching.
What about the consultant or owner right now who's listening or watching, and maybe they have absolutely no desire or plan to sell their business? I think a lot of the things that you're talking about here, we've seen this in our own business, have an impact and can be quite beneficial, even if you don't plan to sell. Can you talk a little bit about what are some of the areas or things that people should be doing regardless in their business, whether or not they plan to sell, that could help them and increase the value of the company again, whether or not they plan to do that?
Yeah. And by the way, the beauty of having your own business is you don't have to sell it if you don't want to, right? You run it any way you want. But, increasing value if you're a solopreneur. So maybe you need to access capital from the bank because you have an opportunity and you need to pull in money to go make an investment or do something. Clean financials are so critical. Having your profit and loss statements in your balance sheet and your tax returns accurately reflect what your business produces is going to increase the value of your business. And why is that? Well, if you ever do need to raise money or go get a working capital line or what, the bank is going to need to see what that business really does. And unfortunately, most small businesses run the business for the benefit of the owner, and they don't keep clean books and records. They put a lot of things through the business. They use a credit card. Very hard for banks to understand where the value is in that business. And so your ability to tap into capital is very limited. And in a time like now where interest rates are so low, your ability to tap into capital is really key in lots of ways if you want to grow or take advantage of certain things. Even if you just want to invest in yourself and you want that investment is going to come in the way of a working capital line. So keeping clean financials, is really so important.
Yeah, I love that one. Is there anything else from a systems perspective that you've seen in your experience that buyers are looking for or desire, therefore increases the value of the company that people should be thinking about right now from a systems or process or brand perspective?
Yeah, so absolutely. Operations manual. To the extent that you have an operations manual that lays out every step of every process and it's clear and it's updated and it's somewhere where everybody can access it and it's a living, breathing document, increases the value of the business dramatically for the reasons I talked about earlier. Now a buyer doesn't have to guess how to do X, Y, Z. It's all documented, and now they just have to find the who to go, execute whatever the process or the system is. So having an operations manual is really very critical.
Yeah, I love that. And, I think we've seen this in our own business too, that a lot of consultants, I remember early on, I would never think of an operations manual when I was just getting started, 21 years ago, because why would I need it? It's just me. But as you start thinking about ways to grow and to have a greater impact, even if you begin just by getting a virtual assistant, then an assistant, then a part-time person, contractor, then full-time, whatever it might be, having that documentation, having that system actually makes things significantly more efficient and effective, because every time you go to bring someone on or the person you have leaves and you have to replace them or whatever, those situations obviously happen. Being able to just refer somebody to, hey, check this out, watch this video, it saves you as the owner a significant amount of time. And what I always counsel and suggest to clients that we work with in our coaching program is, if you're doing something more than once, then you should be building a system or process around it, because it's likely that you're going to continue doing it over and over again. And you might think that, you don't need to document it right now because it's just faster for you to do it yourself than it is to train somebody. But if you document it once or have somebody who's working on that document it themselves, which is even better, now you have an asset in your business. And that's really what you're getting to here, Domenic. I want to ask you a question about your team. Since acquiring this company, you've built the team. How do you think about your own kind of team members? And in terms of like building that team strategically, what do you look for? What kind of hires have you put into place? Just any thoughts or experiences that you've leveraged or brought into your business and that you think is important for people to also consider?
Yeah, I have a couple of things that I'll mention here. And first off, early on, you maybe take a different approach than when you start to mature, and right or wrong, but you just don't have the money to invest early on that you do, later. And so I am incredibly picky about who I will actually invite to be a part of our team. I value culture. I value how people interact with each other. And if I think somebody's just not a fit, regardless of what I think they could do for our business, top line, they're not invited to be part of the team. And in fact, I've had to make some really tough decisions in the past about people who were performing, but were terrible, I'll say partners, obviously not in a financial way, but team members. And we had to part ways because at the end of the day, having a cohesive team that really want to work together can elevate everybody's performance. And so I pay particular attention to culture and harmony and esprit de corps and all those things that I think then generate tremendous productivity across the board.
How do you find that? I mean, are you using assessments, or what have you found kind of like looking back? What are your best practices when you go to hire or to build or to add a new team member? What are you having those people go through so that you have a better sense to essentially be able to make a better decision that gives you the highest likelihood of seeing success with that person?
Yeah, I should use assessments probably, but I am a gut feel manager. I like to take people out. I like to talk to them. I like to see them in a social setting, and I like to get to know somebody. And I form, an opinion based on my gut. I know whether or not that person's really going to fit. And do I get it right all the time? No, I don't. But by and large, I do get it right. But I take my time. I'm not quick to make decisions that I think could harm the business. And if I feel like I just haven't met the right candidate, I'm willing to wait and continue to, sourcing. And if I have to, in this day and age with all of these freelancers, I'll plug a hole with a freelancer until I can find the right fit. I will say, though, all of that, we did use some assessments for salespeople early on that I found very beneficial in some regards. There are some things you can't catch, and these assessments can be very helpful in that regard. But by and large, I'll really want to get to know somebody over some period of time to get comfortable. And, talking to who they worked for and diving deep and asking and maybe even getting beyond the references that they gave you and filtering out to a larger network. And LinkedIn is tremendous that way with the connections. So we'll reach through LinkedIn and talk to common connections and get some feedback. That's been very helpful for us as well.
And when you look to bring someone on, Domenic, are you typically going, setting it as once we reach this financial level or whatever that kind of metric is, then you go out and hire? Or have you found that you kind of look at, here's where we want to get to, and let's start hiring these people now before we even need them? What's been your approach? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that in terms of it being a little bit of a chicken and egg situation.
Yeah, some of this may be my cautious upbringing. I was reared in a Fortune 500 company, and we had to prove that we could generate revenue before we could get resources. So I was just trained that way early on. And I also happened to work for somebody in my early career who really put us to task. We could have great ideas, and he'd say, great, give me proof of concept. And if it looks good, we'll invest. And so my approach has always been, I've got to prove that there's something there for me to go make the investment. And it doesn't have to be much, but I've got to see the needle move, one way or another in order to get comfortable. But if I see that there's a possibility, I'll go make the investment then.
Got you. Let's shift for a moment here. I mean, you provide several different services. I mean, you help people who are looking to buy a business. You help people to sell a business. You also provide advisory services. for clients. So you are providing a lot of consulting related work in your day-to-day at the firm. What are you doing right now to attract new clients? So whether they are the acquirer or the seller, I mean, just kind of talk us through what are you guys doing as a firm right now that you're seeing works best to attract the right kind of clientele?
So I'm not certain what the answer to that question is, because one thing I'm really proud of is we will try things. Like, we don't make big bets, but we'll go try stuff. And 2020 has been a best year ever on record. And that's on the heels of 2019 being our best year. We crushed last year. So I've had some capital to go try a bunch of things, and we did. And with very mixed results.
Tell us, like, what did you try and what worked best or what didn't work at all?
Yeah. So let me say we're a very high ticket item. Right. I mean, we're not a $1,000 we're very high ticket item, right?
What does that mean? Give us a sense. Are we talking what's like your average engagement, 25,000, 100,000, less, more?
We're six figures.
Got you. Okay.
When we sell a business, we're six figures or multiple six figures.
Okay.
On the consulting side, it could be far less than that. But on the acquisition side, where we're helping people buy and sell, we're talking six figures.
Okay.
And so what I know is that Facebook doesn't work for that clientele, for sure. Doesn't work. Facebook ads, it just doesn't work.
Yep.
Even Google ads, at one point in time, they were okay, but even Google ads is proving to not be very good. And so we're actually moving away from Google ads, pay-per-click. We'll stop doing Facebook completely. We tried YouTube. YouTube's also not a fit for what we do. And we're moving more to LinkedIn. LinkedIn and webinars are the two things that we're honing in on. And quite frankly, my podcast has been a great way to generate firm interest. And if not interest, solidify relationships where we've been having discussions and, they can go listen to a couple of the episodes and realize we really are subject matter experts.
Is there a typical entry point? I mean, is your team going out to different businesses based on lists that you find and sending emails and making phone calls and contacting through LinkedIn? Or like, are you guys doing a lot of outbound or is it mainly inbound?
So I have a small business development group that supports my advisors, and we'll do outreach through that business development group. Although that's become very difficult in this pandemic environment. As you know, lots of folks are not in their offices. And so reaching people in their office is become virtually impossible. And unless you have a cell phone, that's become really hard too. So assuming that that's going to be the case for, some period of time here, we've migrated now to LinkedIn as a natural way to, try to connect with people.
And how important have you found it in terms of your marketing to really identify the right type of person? Because from what I know, LinkedIn doesn't necessarily show you that somebody is looking to sell or to buy a business. You can identify how many years that person has been in the business. You can identify industry, geography, a whole bunch of other criteria, but kind of give us a sense of what you guys are doing or how you think about criteria and kind of search filters to really hone in on the right type of ideal client so that your outreach is targeted.
Yeah. So this gets to a little bit of strategy and why we built our new firm, K2 Advisor. The odds are that the number of people that are going to be ready today and at the point where they want to buy and sell is very small. It might be 1 or 2% at most. And even then, they might not be ready to sell once we give them all the specifics, right? And so the numbers and the percentages are very small. So what are we trying to do? We're really trying to get in touch with as many people, hopefully in advance of those events, and work with them so that they can be prepared. So Sun Acquisitions is our M&A arm. Where somebody's ready to buy or sell, we can do the transaction. We built K2 Advisor so that if you're not ready today, that's fine. We can work with you over some period of time to make sure that you are prepared. So whether the date is a year from now or 6 years from now, you've done all the things that you should do to maximize your returns, minimize your risks, avoid the pitfalls. And we think that that's a good marriage. So we'll have a much higher percentage of people who will want to spend the time and effort to prepare, and then naturally, hopefully, walk over some of those folks to the Sun Acquisition side when they are ready.
Awesome. Well, Domenic, I want to thank you so much for coming on here today. Let us know, where's the best place for people to go, to reach out to you, to learn more about the work that you're doing?
Yeah, my email is the best way to reach me. drinaldi@sunacquisitions.com, DRINALDI@sunacquisitions.com.
Wonderful. Okay, we'll have all that linked up in the show notes as well. Domenic, thanks again so much for coming on here today.
Hey, Michael, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Success Podcast. For more episodes and to subscribe, rate, and leave a review, head on over to iTunes. And if you'd like to develop consistent lead flow and a highly profitable consulting business, learn more about our coaching programs at consultingsuccess.com.